So here's the thing about reviewing an album when you walk into it completely blind. You can end up looking like an idiot. And that's basically what happened to me with this one. I saw that the Butthole Surfers had a new album out, After the Astronaut, released June 26, 2026, and I thought, okay, this is a comeback record. One of those great weird bands of the 90s, still kicking around, putting out new music. I'm in, let's do it. But here's the thing, it's not a comeback album, not even close. And the second I figured it out, everything I thought I knew about this record went out the window. Let me back it up a little bit. My relationship with the Butthole Surfers is that of a casual fan. I was around their peak cultural moment in the mid-90s. I remember hearing Pepper on alternative rock radio, just thinking, that song is something else. It's half-spoken, deadpan delivery over that lazy, hypnotic groove. It was one of those songs that felt genuinely wrong in the best possible way, like it snuck past the gatekeeper somehow. And honestly, I still love the song. I put it on today, and it holds up completely. From there, I got into Independent Worm Saloon and Electriclarryland, both solid records that sat comfortably in that strange territory between grunge, psych rock, and something altogether more disturbing. They weren't a band you put on a party unless you wanted things to get weird fast, and I respected that about them. But I never went deep into their catalog. I never went back to the early stuff, the truly chaotic, confrontational records from the 80s. I knew they existed, I knew the reputation. I never took the dive. So when I sat down with After the Astronaut, I was coming in as a 90s Butthole Surfers guy. That's the frame I brought to the table, and as you're about to find out, that was completely the wrong way to look at this album. Here's what I found after my first listen. Once I started digging around trying to figure out what I just experienced, After the Astronaut is not a 2026 album. Not really. It was recorded in 1998. That's the year after Pepper had made them a commercially successful band, and as much as they were ever going to be. Following the release of Electriclarryland in 1996, the band went back into the studio and made this record as the intended follow-up. Capitol Records heard it and they said no, they called it insufficiently commercial and they shelved it. The dispute ultimately led to the band being dropped from the label entirely. Then Disney-owned Hollywood Records got hold of the rights and things somehow got worse. The label forced the band to massively revise and re-record the music to make it more radio-friendly for the new metal era. What came out of that mess in 2001 was Weird Revolution, which by most accounts, including the band's own, was a record they were not really proud of. Nearly 30 years later, the band recovered the rights and released After the Astronaut exactly as they originally recorded it in 1998, freshly mixed by guitarist and producer Paul Leary. So what I thought was a new album is actually a 28-year-old lost record finally seeing the light of day that completely recontextualizes everything. My first listen was not good. I'm going to be honest about that. I went in expecting something in the neighborhood of Electriclarryland, guitar-driven alternative rock with a psychedelic edge and a signature Butthole Surfers menace running underneath everything. What I got instead was something far more electronic, far more abstract, far more difficult to latch onto. The trip-hop beats threw me, the sci-fi synth textures felt alien in a way I wasn't prepared for. Tracks like Intelligent Guy are built on industrial rhythms and electronic loops that have very little to do with the gnarly guitar rock I was associated with these guys. Even the more guitar-forward tracks like Jet Fighter, the album's lead single, felt like they existed in a different sonic universe than anything on Electriclarryland.
On Beirut, then he'll let his missiles fly, boom, boom.
I didn't hate it, I just didn't get it, and I sat with that feeling of mild confusion for a while before I went in and did some reading. Once I understood the history, once I knew it was a 1998 recording that had been locked in a vault for nearly 3 decades, I gave it another listen. And here's where I have to be completely transparent with you. It didn't fully click. What I did gain from the second listen was context. The research told me that when drummer King Coffey talked about making this record, he described it as a return to their experimental roots, specifically referencing the Locust Abortion Technician from 1987. The idea was that instead of chasing late 90s grunge trends, the band deliberately went in the other direction. They went deeper into electronics. They also added more trip hop and hip hop beats and acid grooves and industrial textures and sci-fi weirdness. That makes complete sense once you hear it through that lens. It's not a band trying to write another Pepper, it's a band actively resisting that expectation. And honestly, I respect that artistically. You can hear the DNA of their earlier avant-garde work in these tracks in a way that was absent from the more polished Electriclarryland era. But understanding something intellectually and connecting with it emotionally are two different things. Let me walk you through what you're actually getting on this record. The opening track, The Weird Revolution, sets the tone immediately.
The honorable musician's views on this most timely topic.
Trip-hop influence, heavy on beats and atmosphere. Not a lot of conventional song structure. It's a statement of intent. This is not the Butthole Surfers you heard on radio in 1996. Intelligent Guy follows, and this one leads hard into industrial synths and loops. Critics have noted that Paul Lear's guitar work on this track has more bite to it than most metal bands would dare, but is buried under layers of electronic production in a way that keeps it from being immediately satisfying if you're coming in as a guitar rock fan. Jet Fighter is the closest thing to an accessible entry point here. As the lead single, it layers those shuffle grooves over some generally raw, biting guitar work. You can hear echoes of the Electriclarryland sound here, tracks like TV Star or Ulcer Breakout. If you're struggling to connect with the album, Jet Fighter is probably where you want to start. Mexico is another track worth highlighting. It strips away a lot of the electronic polish and leans into a heavier guitar-centric psychedelic Texas rock groove. There's something sun-baked and almost hypnotic about it. Of all the tracks here, this one felt most natural to me on repeat listens. The second half of the record gets progressively stranger. Venus and The Last Astronaut bring in space rock textures and what I can only describe as carnival sounds, which is very much a Butthole Surfers thing. But an older Butthole Surfers thing, as I'm less familiar with that. Yentl and Junkie Jenny in Gay Town feature the kind of experimental vocal manipulation and pure chaos that made the band notorious in the 80s underground. The closing stretch of They Came In, I Don't Have a Problem, and Turkey and Dressing pushes further into noise rock and industrial punk territory. It's a coherent record in its own way. There's a clear artistic vision running through all 12 tracks, but it's deeply, unapologetically weird. Here's where I land on After the Astronaut, and I want to be upfront with you about something. I'm not giving this album a score. That's not how I want to handle this one. Scoring a lost album that I came into completely wrong and completely lost myself is kind of like not the right thing to do. The record clearly meant something to the band. It was an album they actually wanted to make in 1998 before a major label told them it wasn't commercial enough. And of all companies, it was Disney that forced them to water it down into Weird Revolution, which sounds oddly relevant today. But before nearly 30 years of things are sitting in a vault, the fact that it's out now, mixed by Paul Leary exactly as they intended, it's genuinely meaningful. What I can tell you is that if you're a casual 90s Butthole Surfers fan like me, go into it with your expectations are very open. It's not Electriclarryland 2. It isn't even adjacent to that sound. It's the band reconnecting with their chaotic experimental 80s roots and then adding trip-hop, electronics, sci-fi weirdness on top of it. If that sounds like your thing, you might love the record. If you're a diehard fan who went deep on Locust Abortion, Technician, and the early catalog, you probably already know what this record is and you're probably already listening to it. For me, it's a record I appreciate more than I enjoy, and sometimes that's just where you end up. Not every album is going to grab you, and manufacturing enthusiasm to seem more knowledgeable than you are isn't something I'm interested in doing. The Butthole Surfers made the record they wanted to make in 1998. 28 years later, you can finally hear it. Make of that what you will. If you want to check out my other 2026 album reviews, there's a playlist link below. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Check out my review of the new album by Muse. That was actually the last video I did. And I'll probably review the new one by The Pretty Reckless, so you can look up for that one. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.